You're listening to the HNC Let's Talk podcast, hosted by Dexter Brooks. Thanks for tuning in to HNC Let's Talk podcast. We partner with subject matter experts to provide candid conversations on health and lifestyle. Here at HNC Let's Talk podcast, mental, physical, spiritual, financial, and health are all connected. This episode of HNC Let's Talk podcast is sponsored by HealthNet Co. Together, we make insurance simple.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is Dexter with HNC Let's Talk podcast. I'm really excited today because I have a special guest that I'm bringing on who is not only just a special guest, he's a friend. He's also a United States Marine Corps veteran. And today, being Memorial Day, made this a perfect opportunity to bring him on my podcast and talk about his podcast with him and his son. His name is Lawrence Jones. He's a photographer, photojournalist, United States Marine Corps veteran, retired after 20 years. He completed 4 comeback tours and a recent graduate of HBCU, Fayetteville State University in Fayetteville, North Carolina. He completed his Bachelor of Arts in Communication Media Studies with a minor in English and Literature. Together, father and son team up to discuss, celebrate, and laugh a little while doing a deep dive into the narrative of Black men navigating the life in the 21st century, exploring impactful influences, life lessons, media representation, and presentation against the landscape of American culture in an era of Black Lives Matter. On Being a Black Man is his podcast, hosted by Lawrence Jones from Miami, Florida, and co-hosted by his son, Tajh Jones, also born in Low County of Beaufort, South Carolina. Tajh is a graduate of Miami South Ridge Senior High and in Miami-Dade County, Florida, and is an aspiring comedian. Did I hear that right? First of all, I want to welcome both of you guys on. How you guys are doing, and thanks for serving as well.
Thank you. I'm doing well, Taj. I'm doing great. Thanks for asking.
Man, I tell you, I'm going to call you by the name I know you by, Lawrence, which is Jay, because I don't want to remember your name as being Lawrence, okay?
I know, right? We go way back. We do. We go way back. And then I'm going to just go back a little bit. And so I'm going to start off by going back during your military, because I remember when you joined the military. And I remember receiving this letter that you sent me to give to your mom in case something happened. And it broke my heart to read that letter. Do you remember that? Yeah. So, I left one with my sister too, who was very upset. I was a bit nervous about that first combat tour. I was terrified, actually. It was one of the first times that my particular MOS was going forward, and we didn't know what that looked like. I was not very sure what to expect from that. And so it was just my mind. I don't like surprises. So I was leaving little nuggets. I was always terrified of an early death. My father died when I was young, and life would have it so that the age gap between my father and I is exactly the same age gap between Tajh and I. So those parallels haunted me probably until I was actually about 33. Most of that time I spent in my early young fatherhood dreading the death that I thought was imminent, and that I would, leave my son early the way I felt my father left me. So I had some reconciling to do, with death and me and the Lord. It took some time. I had, conversations with my brother in secret, my sister. Eventually, me and God just, had a talk, and it was like, look, bro, I am not trying to kill you. And if I were, I would not need to take you to Iraq to do it. And so, yeah, that letter and the email, I slid in a suit that I picked out. I left it in the closet at my mom's house. Like, I was just, leaving little things that if were necessary to send my body back from Iraq in that first tour, that they could go ahead and pull a funeral together.
When you talk about that, we as civilians don't think about how that serviceman is thinking when he's going into that offshore for battle. We don't think about that. We just think about the fact that, where my brother, my sister is leaving me. But you took it to a whole new level that I had never experienced, because I have two brothers that served as well. And I never thought about that when they left. I just knew that they were gone, and where they were. But I never thought about them having to do what you did, or even if they did what you did.
They probably didn't. I'm a bit dramatic sometimes. As my sister would say, my life is a bit of a dramatic, romantic self-help comedy special. So yeah. But yeah, I was definitely feeling all my feelings all at once. So I was, planning and feeling all at the same time. Yeah.
A lot of emotions going through. So 20 years later, you finally decide to step outside of the services. And again, thank you for serving.
Thank you.
And you decide to go back to school.
Yeah. If you can imagine being, older, wiser, in my 40s, sitting in a classroom filled with 19 and 20-year-olds, somewhere between shut up and and okay, that makes sense. I was definitely a bit of a fish out of water. I had a different approach to it, but I was ready. Like, my mind was ready to receive what is being given at the collegiate level. So I was a much better student at college than I have ever been as a student. God bless all of my teachers, because I was...
They had to tolerate you, that's what you're saying.
Yeah, Lord knows they earned those paychecks. Nobody was given a paycheck if I was sitting in that classroom. There was no freebies given in those days. Yes.
I mean, like you said, because there was a true generational gap there. You're basically sitting in a class with people that was in their 20s and you're in your 40s. And it's like, how did you actually deal with that?
Some of them were not born. I learned I'm not a patient person by nature. I've learned patience over the years, and that was how I got through. Some of them were just very different, different times. So being a military school instructor helped a lot. It gave me time with people from different walks of life, different backgrounds, different age groups. So I felt like some of this I've seen before, with Marines coming in from different age groups in my classes. Sometimes I would get the 18-year-olds. Sometimes my Marines would be 26, 22, 27. Some of them would be literally my age at that time. So the Marine Corps prepared me. So I would sit down, but sometimes I would hear one of them say, back in the day. Back in the day, when was that? Yesterday? Like, what do you mean back in the day? Or like they might say, a really old movie. And they would say something from like the 90s. And I'm like, oh my God. I just want to like bury my head in the desk, because they would say something from like 98 or 95. I'm like, wait a minute now. Like, I was in high school in 95, graduating. So it was interesting though. I learned a lot. I had really amazing professors who helped to also bridge that gap at FSU. Shout out to the Broncos.
You graduated from college. Then you launched a podcast, which is called on being a Black man. I want to get Taj's input on this because didn't you decide to bring your son into this? So Taj, let's hear from you. How do you feel about doing this?
I think it's great. I was a little surprised that he wanted to start one. It's very weird because like Dad, one thing I can say about Dad is like he'll have these random wants and then he'll just go pursue them. Like the photography thing, that was like a random Thursday. He was like, I'm gonna be a photographer. He came back from a trip. And he's like, I'm gonna be a photographer. I was like, oh yeah, that's great. Okay, start it now. Yeah. So when he wanted to do the podcast, I'm like, yeah, that sounds about right. All right, let's do it.
Yeah,
sounds cool.
I do. I am a passion, like pursuer. That was birthed through a paper that I'd written in college, and the paper was more of a realization, over a lifetime. Movies through the '90s that that I was raised on. Seeing on the big screen and seeing how things play out, television, news, and that was the experience of college, like exposure. And while I didn't live it out in my 20s, it happened for me in my 40s. And the manifestation of that was, this is the era we live in. It's podcasts. And as you stated, prior to us, coming live, was like, yeah, if you want that exposure, what I wanted to do was create something for Black men, a space for us. I'm not a celebrity. Many of us will not walk that lifestyle. We're not the Will Smiths. We're not the notable names, in Hollywood, but our stories deserve to be told, and what's happening is now, with so many of us being killed and shot, unarmed, armed, whatever it is, the stories aren't getting heard until there's a negative narrative attached to it,
Correct.
And many of us don't live that life. There are many brothers who live honorable lives every day, who raise children, who may not even have children, but, get up and make life happen honorably. Get up and make their wives proud, get up and make their girlfriends proud, their boyfriends proud, their fathers proud. And they do it without ever having to pass through the correctional systems, and no one will ever know their names. I just simply got tired of hearing or waiting for the news to pop up and show us and parade, another brother across the screen. And then the family has to come on and say, but he was a loving young man. He was the type of person who, made people smile. He was the kind of person who would brighten a room, Thus, that's when we would hear about these narratives. That's when we learned, that he grew up in church and he was the deacon, or he was the, a young member of the choir. We never hear those stories, And so the podcast was my way attaching the photography. All of the images on the podcast are original images from my camera that I take in cities around the state of North Carolina, or if I get a chance to travel, of just African-American males doing everyday things. And those are the narratives, about Black men. And it's just an attempt to combat the negative, the negative stories being pushed every day, for all of these years. I don't care if it's the same story, my understanding, my impression, my experiences is that we're so unique. We're so much more than what we've seen on the screens, in the movies. We're more than the jokes, as Taj pointed out in our first episode. And those are the narratives, I think, that also deserve to be told and to be shared. Those influences that come from home and those influences that come from school and our communities, our friends, our teachers, our educators, And I want to share those stories. And I was glad that Todd said yes. I didn't think that he would, because he's actually a bit of a quiet guy. But
yeah, that's my thing. I remember Taj being very quiet, very shy. So I was surprised that he actually said yes to a podcast. I was like,
right. But he holds his own, right?
Yeah, he does. He definitely does hold his own. So, Taj, what do you want to see come out of this with the podcast?
Mainly awareness, more like what Dad said, not just the negative side of a Black man in case something does happen. Awareness, just a good time. There's a lot of negative stuff out there, and it's nice to have genuine, fun, educational pieces of entertainment out there. So hopefully we can deliver on that.
Now, since when was your first launch? When was your first episode?
May 1st. Yeah, we went live May 1st. The model is to launch every other week to push an episode. We both work now. I've come out of returement.
You finally started working. Good. I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah, listen, don't come for me. I love my free time. Like, I think it's been almost 6 years of just being retired. I did work for 2.5 years in corporate. I made a little money. That was fun. I chased the dollars. But I did enjoy, what I realized is I wanted to do work that I loved. And what I wanted more importantly than just making money was I wanted the education. I did want college more than I wanted to, make the money. So I stopped working. I went to school full time. I completed that. And what was awakened in me was the educator. And so now I am teaching an educational system. And that's passion work for me. It's also a bit of test of my patience. Gotta love secondary education. But yeah, that was awakened in me by way of the English and literature minor work that I did. And so that's how all of this came full circle. Photography, the journalism work that I did at FSU, all of it, comes together really through the podcast and the giving back and seeing that positivity, that imagery work for African American males, and giving back in the education system. So I'm back to work now, but I'm on summer break. So, we're actually going to be wrapping up our next episode 3, this evening. So we'll be going live. I think that should hit tonight, actually, for those who are following us. They'll be getting those alerts in their cell phones tonight with episode 3.
Now, you say Being a Black Man, it was originated from a paper?
Yeah. I'd written a paper in one of my communication classes. I believe it was communication theory. The paper explored the stereotypes of Black males as told through African American males. It explored 6 narratives from the 1990 films. It looked at Boys in the Hood, Juice, Menace to Society. What was the others? Menace to Society. Oh boy, drawing a blank. On the tail end of that was the film ATL, which is outside of the 90s, but it was the comparison. So it basically expanded a 10-year span of male coming of age films, and then compared them to that outlier, if you will, which was 2006 ATL, which starred what was the Ross boy, Dinah Ross's son.
Okay. So you were born in the South. You were born in Florida. Okay.
Yeah.
You're living in North Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
So let's look at this based on geographic area, based on, as you was growing up, how was life as a Black man in the South in Florida?
Yeah. So for me, I had a great life. My family, it was a demonstration of like large family, Southern traditions of love, church going, faith-based, supportive men, loving, protective. I didn't know, life of streets and violence. I had the schoolhouse, fights, that was where I, that was where I was breaking bad, but I was getting my tail whipped, my mama didn't play the radio. She was unplugging that mug. Like, it was not happening. I would show out at school, but I was definitely, paying the price for it until I got to the point where I was like, okay, I'm tired of getting the punishments for my actions. So we got it together. By the time we got to seventh grade, I think was that turnaround point for me. I had an amazing, actually, I met her in 7th grade, and she wasn't actually my teacher yet, but she saw something in me. Her name was Crystal Hickman. Well, it was Bentley, but I knew her as Crystal Hickman. Hello, Miss Hickman. She was an 8th grade science teacher then. But she pulled me out of a crowd of faces, and she saw my face, and she recognized, my family in my face. And she just kind of held me accountable. And that was just knowing that she would see me. And I believe she would do what she said. And then she said, don't make me pull up on Jackson Street. And when I heard her say that, I did not want that. And that was all I needed. And the rest of my time there, I was just on it. And she saw something in me. And I actually really did enjoy science. And so that was the turnaround point for me, was just that one teacher, pulling my tailcoat. I applied for a magnet program that was pretty new at the time, called Master Academy. It was through education, believe it or not, that kind of changed my behavior. It went from, being a kid who would fight at the drop of a dime, in schools, and my focus became my grades. I went to Master Academy, and you had to maintain a GPA. There were no fights for me after that. And I was up in the morning catching a bus from the south end of Miami to Vizcaya. Bus picked me up at 5:47 in the morning, and I would, ride out. School started about 8:15. So at 5:47 in the morning, I was in full commute mode. And, I did that. I did that until we graduated. And then I went on to the Marine Corps. So my life changed for me that early because of a teacher, because of Miss Crystal Hickman. So yeah, lots of change came through education system for me. But my family, that support system, definitely rooted in having a family that kept me grounded. Cousins who, we moved like a little bit of a mob. We were always together, always protected, in a large group. I definitely knew who I was. There was a lot of pride in my last name. We grew up in that community sense of the families knew you. There was always accountability as you moved around the community. It didn't even matter that they were not actually your family,
But the neighbors knew who you were, so they knew who to go to. Basically, if you did something wrong, Jones would know.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, very different times.
Taj attended school in Miami as well. So
Yes.
was there a difference when you attended school? I mean, we're looking at the generational gap here. So I want to try to pinpoint where was because like if I go back and look at my days in school and I can say, well, I can tell you how much violence there was. And I'm waiting to see where was that impacted for you. So how about you, Taj, when you was attending school?
Well, first off, Miss Hickman actually ended up being my principal in middle school, which is strange. I had this attention from her that I never asked for because I was his son. So yeah, but I mean, it was just sometimes it could be a little much. It'll be school would start at like 7 or something, like really early, too early for these fights that would happen a lot. Just people eating hot Cheetos and drinking soda and fighting in the morning, yelling. I'm like, it's not even first period yet. Can we get to class? But I can't really say. I mean, there's not too much. It's not too different. It's yeah, it's not too different. I can't even pick out.
So did you feel that you was did you feel like you was living in your dad's shoes?
Not really.
No, Todd is very different from me.
Yeah.
Like young, and I'm grateful. Young me and Todd,
he was a rowdy kid. I've never been in a fight.
Yeah.
No.
But Todd wrestled though, as a kid. In middle school, right?
In middle school, yeah. I remember seeing photos of him. He was a wrestler in middle school. I remember that.
Yeah.
That's probably why no one actually tried to fight me though. That came with a little bit of, don't mess with him. Not that I was the best wrestler, but just because I was wrestling, period, like set me apart. Cause like, all right, let's leave him alone.
Yeah. Yeah. And that helped. I think that started from when he was younger, and we remember the Black Belt Academy.
Oh yeah. I was in karate too for a little bit.
Yeah. I think that gave him some confidence as a younger kid. You don't know? No.
I don't know. What was I, like a yellow belt with like 2 stripes?
Mm-hmm.
I was like 3 weeks of class.
You don't think it helped? No, I thought he was more timid as a younger kid. I was like, he's gonna get beat up a lot. We gotta do something.
All right.
So from what I'm hearing, your podcast on being a Black man, you're basically setting out a goal to show the positive versus the negative, or so are you trying to show a comparison or a contrast?
So the goal is to just share the narrative. Now, I'm not saying that there aren't negative, stories to be told. Many of us come from some negative places. And if that is your truth, then it is what it is. But I'm not sifting through the narratives to highlight, them. We get emails, from people who say, I want to be a part. And absolutely, write us, at onbeingablackman.com. But the goal was just to create a space that celebrated Black men. You know what I mean? That celebrated. And sometimes that narrative may come with some negative points. I'm probably not going to, seek you out if you're like, yeah, so I'm still slinging this dope. And I'm like, yeah, I'm probably not going to look for you. But if somewhere in your narrative that was the story, and then you were like, yeah, and so I gave that up, and here I am, doing this thing. Okay, yeah, let's talk about that, because that's a story of redemption. I mean, we've all, got something in the pipeline that may not shine so bright. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So yeah.
That's the narrative. That's the truth about it right there. I mean, I salute both of you guys for actually doing this, especially because, like you say, what we've actually seen over the years has always been the negative, and there's been very little positive within the Black community. And being from the South myself, that was one of the reasons why I decided to move away from the South a little bit, because there's so much negative, so much things. You didn't want to get caught up in the gangs. You didn't want to get caught up with the bad crowd. And there's only so far you can run, before you realize, it's either going to catch up or you're going to stand up to it.
Right. Yeah. The goal is to definitely create a space for us. And I'm hoping that people will catch on and, and to support that, and and provide that and share it, and that's the idea, is there are more than the stereotypical, dope dealing, we've lived 40 something odd years of the same trope being, displayed across the screen, and watching the news of seeing that brother. More than that exists in our country, in our world. I would just simply like to share that narrative, through this podcast.
So are you, you said you're getting a lot of letters and a lot of people. So basically, that means you're growing rapidly. So
I hope, yeah. We get, thank you to our families, man. Our families have been really supportive. My friends through the military, the friends through school, the people who listen and actually message through our website have been really supportive. So I try to get on and message as often as I can. So I'm watching. I try not to watch the data too closely, because sometimes it changes rapidly, and then sometimes it's a little slow. So I don't want to get too I don't want to get discouraged. I just let it do what it does.
Yeah. Don't get caught up in numbers.
Yeah. But I do try to get to the email at least once or twice in the week, so that the messaging that comes through, I get a chance to respond to them. We just actually sat down with one of the listeners. He's going to be on our upcoming episode, actually. He wrote to us right away during episode 1, or shortly after episode 1. So that was exciting. So we were able to coordinate with him, because he's a North Carolina resident, and pull him in the midst of all of the emails. I found him. So that was great. So it's exciting. It's all new. There was some stuff in there, and I was just like, well, give us a minute to grow, and find a space where we can improve upon, whether it was tech or how we format, because it's new. It's new. It's really just a labor of love and a desire to just see something different and fresh, in a space to see brothers, celebrated, uplifted, and a chance to, share in a different way.
I mean, when I first listened to it, I was very impressed with it. I mean, even though the first one was not an episode.
Right. It's a prelude.
I think you guys would try to kick it off right there, but it was not an episode. But like I said, it was different. It was completely different from your standard podcast. You saw two Black men who were basically father and son, which you don't see a lot of at all.
Yeah.
Across any spectrum.
Yeah.
I'm not going to call you the Cosby kids, because you know what happened there. So.
Yeah, a lot of people commented on our relationship. And I actually did not consider that being a thing that people would gravitate to. But hey, I've had him since he came out, fresh out the womb.
Well, so I can say this for you guys' relationship. You guys have always had a close relationship. Ever since he was born, You guys have had a close relationship.
Yeah. I mean, I really like him. So.
I mean, sometimes I was wondering that's really Jay's son. I'm like, is that really your son? Because it was almost like it was like a me and a little me from day one, you know.
Yeah, people talk about that. It's like, man, I really like the dynamic. I love the father and son relationship, and I appreciate that. So for all of those people who wrote in, who commented regarding that, yeah, thank you. Yeah, it was always my intention because, again, I lost my father at a young age. It terrified me the moment I found out that I was having a boy. When Sarah told me that, you know, when we saw the little the little sonogram, and she was like, "It's a boy." My concern was, you know, how do I do this? You know, because I didn't have that very long in my life, you know, as a son, father and son, you know, demonstration. How was I going to do this? So I'm glad that my intentions, you know, have been met, and that we still have, you know, the relationship that we do. Sometimes I want to vote him off the island, but you know,
vote him off the island.
You know. But you know,
thing is that wouldn't matter. I mean, because he gets one vote, I get one vote, so I won't go anywhere.
Right.
I think recently, Taj, you got your first tattoo.
No, I got my first tattoo 2 years ago.
Right. He's got another tattoo.
Yeah, I got another tattoo.
Yeah, you got a recent one.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got the Can you see it in there?
Nice.
Yeah, thank you.
So I was waiting for a time. I think Jay Mays mentioned somebody he approved of a tattoo. You were waiting until he became an adult to do a tattoo. You didn't want him to get one as a teenager.
Right. Yeah. You know, we talked about like choices he can live with, you know. That was the thing. It's like, all right now. I don't want you to come in here with something that you be like, oh, you know, that remorseful decision. Like, why did you? Like,
he doesn't have to worry about me coming with a tennis ball on my forehead or something.
That, you know, one of those life-altering tattoos. Like, so you know, you'll never get hired anywhere. It's like, you know, but you know, he really wants to do comedy, and so I've been supportive. You know, it surprised me when I went to his Instagram page for the first time to watch his skits and to see him do what he does again, because he's so quiet. You know, I was shocked, and I was like, "So this is what you're doing at home when I'm not here."
Yeah, let's dig down into that a little bit, because I'm surprised too that when I saw that comedy, and I know how quiet he is. So Taj, tell me, how did this come about?
It started when I was in middle school. I watched a lot of Martin growing up. So what I would do is, and this is so wrong, I'm not mean naturally, but do you know the jokes Martin would tell Pam, like the mean jokes? There was this girl in my class. I would just recite those jokes to her, and they were mean jokes, but they were funny. So that's how, like, the comedy, like, I was like, this is funny. I like doing this. And then I would also retell Kevin Hart jokes to my cousins at family reunions. And they would laugh, and I was like, I really like this. Even though these aren't my jokes, I really like this feeling. So I think after I graduated high school, I said I was going to go to college, and I did for some time, but I didn't really genuinely want to do that. I wanted to pursue comedy. So that's what I did. I started last year on January 28th. It was my first open mic. And then I did about 2 or 3 of those, and then COVID struck. So comedy clubs closed, and I went back. They started opening back a couple months ago. I went back to an open mic last week, but I missed it because I got something to eat. I wanted to. This trip was all about connecting and networking with other comedians. I didn't really have to perform, really. I just wanted to, show my face and get friendly with the other comedians. So the plan was I got in town early. I went down to Raleigh, which was like an hour away. I got there early, like 6:23. Sign up was at 7. That's what I read. Apparently I had to sign up before 7. So when I got there at 6:23, I passed the club, went to get something to eat, came back at 7, and I was waiting to sign up for the open mic. And as I'm waiting for the dude to come to me, I see the paper. I'm like, that's not good. That's not supposed to be out there a little early with that. And then I was like, yeah, I'm here to sign up for open mic. He's like, oh, I already did that. I'm like, oh, okay. All right. That's fine. So I waited, and then, yeah. But I didn't stay. I just went home. I was like, all right, I'm going to hit the next one. But I have a competition in July that I signed up for as well, which I have no business being in because I have like 3 minutes of stand-up experience. Like, I have no business being in it. But I have nothing to lose. I have a little to gain. This is pretty much the experience of it. So if I win, that's great. That's awesome. But I don't expect to go past round 1.
It's an opportunity to, like I said, it's an opportunity for experience. That's the big thing about it right there.
Yeah,
that's the best thing about when you do something is just experience. You gain the experience. Even if you don't win, you gain the experience.
Right.
It's definitely a hustle.
I'm prepared for that.
Yeah.
So that's what's happening next. So, yeah, but Kevin Hart is really my comedian inspiration. Really, him and Dave Chappelle mainly. But I grew up just a Kevin Hart fanatic. So even now, it's just, you don't like Kevin Hart, I'm probably not going to talk to you, honestly.
He's serious about Kevin Hart. Like, I will admit.
He's the greatest. I don't know how you...
So you probably wouldn't know your dad was a comedian as well, right?
Yeah, I can tell.
You know, right?
Yeah, I'm a little funny, We do sit and talk, like,
yeah.
He sends me, sometimes he'll send me his clips and he's like, I'll critique whatever. Yeah, but I just want to see him do well at whatever it is he wants to do. I've never been the type that you can force something on. So when I saw that he wasn't really passionate, for the college piece, I talked to his mom privately. I was like, yeah, so he's really not like excited about about college. I can see that, because I was excited about school. When I was there, you knew I was there. So when he, wasn't really pushing for the next semester to register, I get it. Been there, done that. So, I did his headshots for him. And every now and again, I'm like, hey, you want to take some pictures? We're just kind of, keep his images fresh for his, for his Instagram, at It's Tajh for real. And, just kind of help him out as much as I can. I still don't go to his shows. I want to make him nervous. When he's ready for me to be there, he'll let me know. In the meantime, what I'm saying, it's me and him, till the wheels fall off, or, pretty sure, at some point, when there's a young lady, all up in his ear, he'll probably like, hey, Dad, I'm gonna get my own place. At which point I'm like, Yahtzee. How can I help? When can I pack? Can I move some boxes? I'm gonna buy you a Keurig, like microwave, what can Daddy do? But however I can support, I'm good. And for now, we just do what we do and support. That's what parents do. Yeah.
So you're doing your podcast, back on your podcast. You're doing your podcast, what, once a month or just how many? Once a week or once a month?
So every 2 weeks, episode drops. It's like that awkward every time there's a fifth week in the month. There's that little awkward space. But basically every 2 weeks. Yeah. Every 2 weeks there's an episode. So tonight, in fact, this episode should drop. Episode 3. Yeah, which
Okay,
actually,
so
strange
for
enough,
those-
it's about
For those
meeting
of
new
us who are
people.
beyond the age, besides myself, that doesn't understand, what does drop mean? Okay.
Yeah. So it'll go live tonight, episode 3.
Okay, because like everybody doesn't know technology, they don't know what terminology is. So what do you mean by drop? It's like
Episode 3 will go live tonight. If we get through everything, I think we are doing that tonight. Yeah, it should go live tonight. I just got to do the last. I think we're doing the outro and then the edits and release tonight. Yeah.
The edits and release. Oh, right. Nice.
Yeah.
So do you think at any point in time you're going to bring in some of your past history from the military? Talk about your military days in your podcast?
So, being that it's a bit of a narrative, kind of a base show, a lot of, Tajh and I really does, it makes its way into the podcast because we end up, we sit down for a conversation. And then, the narrative of the show is really centered on the guest. But whatever we discuss is really based on us and whatever the topic of that show is. So sometimes that's kind of predetermined by us, like the theme. Like this one is, it's nice to meet you. And that came from a conversation that Tajh and I were having because he expressed an interest with regard to him attending that last show at the comedy club, networking and meeting new people. The difference in our personalities is I've always been, capable of just kind of walking into a space and like, hey, how you doing? Talking to folks. But Tajh is a bit more reserved. So we were talking about that. It just so happens that professionally, the gentleman that we interviewed, he oversees onboarding and he's always meeting new people. So that just kind of worked out. And so I think I'm using that phrase, it's nice to meet you. But each episode, for all intents and purposes, with the naming convention, it's always on being whoever that person is. So on being his name. So, the last one was on being Philip Eatman. But we also have like a little, title, if you will. We addressed the mama's boy persona on that episode because we were also honoring Mother's Day. Yeah.
Let's talk about that too. Let's talk about the mama's boy. Jay?
Yeah. Well, definitely, I'm a mama's boy for real. Yeah. As Tajh says, it's acceptable, but it was also it had like a bit of a negative connotation because some people perceive mama's boy as, in that negative side as, someone who can't be without mama, can't make a decision without mama, will, leave his woman in a ditch for his mama, you know what I'm saying? So it really does depend on the perception or perspective of the individual using the term. When the woman in your life, or when a woman in a man's life does not have a healthy relationship with his mother, the term mama's boy can be used or will be used as a weapon, period. Like, she'll be like, oh, mama's boy. And that really just depends on also how he manages those relationships. Tajh we had a conversation about who sits in the front seat, when he's riding with mom and the wife. And do you want to go into that? Do you remember that?
Oh, the video I saw.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was just a video. It was a scripted video. It wasn't real, but it just brought up the topic of who's in the front seat when your wife and your mother fight for the front seat, and you're just standing there like, come on, guys, like come on, like let's stop this. This is ridiculous. And I said I was just hop in the back seat and let one of them drive. That's the solution to that. But yeah, it's just and it's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
But
for me, I've
always looked at it like this. It's based on age. Who's the oldest?
Yeah. Well, mama's the oldest.
Then mama sits in the front seat, and that just ends it right there. That's just the way it is,
It's like, right. Yeah. I would say, in healthy relationships, if mom and the wife have a healthy relationship, then the wife would be like, mom, if the wife offers a seat to the mom, then, mom would. But husband and wife, husband and wife for one, husband and wife are sitting in the front seats, but also the husband being, one with his wife, by default, he should, automatically walk mom to the back seat on his side and secure her right behind him in the back seat and say, make sure mom is good and snuggled, fasten her in. Because the back seat isn't. I think
that would depend on who the mom was. Because if that was my mom, you're in trouble. If you throw her in the back seat, you're in trouble.
But see, that was suggest that the back seat of the vehicle was like a place of subservience. Like, it's not. It's just the back seat. It is absolutely going to arrive in the same place as the front. You know what I'm saying?
Only a second later, but it'll get there, right? So
yeah,
because even when the president rides in his car, he's not in the front seat; he's in the back.
He's in the back.
Powerful people sit in the back.
Yeah,
so it's like everybody should be fighting for the back seat, honestly.
Yeah, if anything, just load them both in the back.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Get you some shades and
the person in the front seat.
Chauffeur. Put the dog in the front.
No, that's gonna be a
problem. But
that's becoming a norm now. I see dogs and cats taking the front seat, and the moms and everybody else taking the back seat. So what can I tell you?
That'll be a thing. That'll be a question. We'll pull on to the show. We'll see if we can find a brother on one of these narratives and be like, listen, wife, everything. Right? Dogs over everything. Wife, mom, who's in the front seat? Like. Somebody gonna fess up. We'll see. When we play the end game, that's like a little something that I tacked on to the end of the show, like a word association, where we just throw a word or phrase out there, and sometimes I throw out a year because sometimes a single year has such a resonance with people that it can just bring up an emotion or a memory, like 1968, just resonates, or, sometimes, something like 1665, or 1965 for that matter. All of these dates, or I think for this one, I said the word kingdom. And our interviewee said, Jehovah's Witness, that's a religious, group of people. And I was like, that's an interesting association for kingdom. It actually made me laugh. I'm like, that's interesting. And then I think last episode, I said selfless. And Philip said mother, and that was on our on Mama's Boy episode. And I was like, yeah, I think that's about right. That was probably about spot on, for a word like that. And I think my running joke for that episode too, I said entanglement. And he was like Will and Jada. And I was like, we just gonna leave August off? We just gonna let him walk scot-free on that one? It's like, I would have been like, Will, Jada, August. Everybody responsible. But yeah.
So before we
Thank you
sign off, where do you guys see you at in 5 years? With being a black man.
Man. That's a good one.
Have you even thought about it?
I haven't. So, I like to write. And like Todd said, Dad is always doing something. I do not know. What do we want to be doing in 5 years?
I mean, he'll probably be writing a book about it. I don't know.
That. Yeah. I do want to do something with my poetry. So maybe some of these narratives might be interesting enough to pen a collection of some sort, or maybe just I keep hearing about like sponsorships or something, but I don't know how long we'll do this, to be honest. But I want to do it so long as it's enjoyable and it's beneficial. So yeah.
We want to end on a high like Breaking Bad.
That,
what was that, Taj?
Without the gunshots.
I said we want to end on a high like Breaking Bad. We don't want to go too long.
Without the gunshot.
Yeah, I mean, because they totally went out in the blaze. Like, no machine guns in the trunk for this guy. Like, none of that. Yeah.
Oh, man, I tell you. All right, guys. I want to thank both of you guys for joining me. I do definitely appreciate it. Todd, it's great seeing you after, probably about 25 years. How old are you now? 30, 32?
Oh, my gosh.
I'll be 20. I'll be 22 tomorrow.
I know, you're about in your 20s. It's been about, 16 years.
Yeah.
I'm going to say nice meeting you. Honestly, I can't remember.
Yeah. Todd was I think Todd was about 3 or 4 decks when we left Atlanta. Or I think you left before we PCS.
Yes. Right.
Yeah.
Because like I said, the last time I saw him, he had a little suit on and a Louis Vuitton luggage, and he was on his way I think he was on his way to Florida. Yeah, that's what it was.
Yeah.
Because you guys I was like, okay, little me, big me, and little me. That's all I could say every time I saw you guys together. Big me and little me.
Yeah, he's all grown now, man. All grown up. But yes, thank you so much for having us.
No, thank you. Thank you guys both. And again, thank you for serving. Again, I love the podcast. And I can tell you the reason why I love it, because it's genuine. It's not something that people just normally make up. It tells the stories. It tells the side of the Black community that most people don't even think about.
Awesome. Thank you.
Which is a positive. And to see you guys doing it as father and son really just put a whole new twist in it automatically. I was really floored when I saw that. Like, what? I was like, you could be kidding me.
Yeah. So we get to.
So I know, Jay. I know your mom. Your mom's about like I am, and I know your mom just was thrilled.
Yeah, she's been very supportive, and she listens. So she's been enjoying the shout outs, and particularly happy to hear Taj engaging so well, because again, he's a quiet guy.
People don't realize podcasts was actually therapeutic.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah, I can see that.
They're very. You'll be so surprised how much you can actually speak in a podcast and find yourself actually healing yourself. And that was the reason I launched my podcast, because of the things that I was going through, and it just took me to a whole new level. So they're very therapeutic.
Yeah.
So now I don't have to go whoop nobody's butt.
We'll find something great in it, and and we always say, share. Like, even if you don't like it, share it anyway, because somebody else may.
Somebody else may like it. That's right. Somebody else may. You never know what's on someone else's mind. That's true.
Yeah. Indeed.
All right, guys, I'm going to sign off here. And again, to all those that are listening, again, this is I had to remember his name, Lawrence and Tajh Jones. I can't say Jesse. Lawrence and Tajh Jones with being a black man. It's kind of, you guys don't understand how hard that is for me to remember the name, but still.
We've just known each other too long. And yeah, I used to just be known as Just Jay for many years.
Like he was in Men in Black or something. What's that?
Yeah, long story.
And until our next podcast, everyone be safe, be well, and have a great day's Monday, isn't it? Enjoy the rest of your Monday and happy Memorial Day. And again, thanks for serving, Jay.